A cancer diagnosis can feel like the end of the story. Whether you've received one yourself or watched someone you love hear those words, you know how quickly life can change. Our guest today, Heather Von St. James, was diagnosed with terminal malignant pleural mesothelioma cancer shortly after giving birth to her daughter. Doctors gave her a limited prognosis and a very real possibility that she may not see her little one grow up. But this isn't a story about giving up. It's a story about hope, resilience, and what can happen when you refuse to let a diagnosis define your future. Welcome back to Shit Creek Survivors. We share real stories of people getting stuck up Shit Creek, the paddles they use to get out, and hope for anyone stuck up their own Shit Creek right now. Let's meet Heather. Heather, thank you so much for being here on Shit Creek Survivors. If you would, introduce yourself to our audience and let us know who you are.
Well, thank you, Cameron, for having me here today. It's a privilege and an honor to be here to share my story. My name is Heather Von St. James, and I am a wife, I'm a mother, an animal lover, but my claim to fame, or my Shit Creek, is I was diagnosed with terminal cancer when I was just 36 years old, 3 months after the birth of my first and only child.
Wow.
The cancer is called malignant pleural mesothelioma, which is the asbestos cancer,
Okay.
which you may have seen commercials on TV or
Yeah.
on, in radio and all that stuff. I was exposed to asbestos as a child through my dad's work. He did construction and
Okay.
drywall and demolition, and he brought the asbestos home, and it was through that contact that I was exposed, and 30 years later, I ended up with mesothelioma, which is a cancer of the lining of the organs, and mine was the
Okay.
lining of my lung.
Oh, wow. That's important information. I didn't realize that almost, could I call it like a secondary exposure? Like
Yeah,
him
that's
coming
exactly what it is. Yep.
and yeah, so him doing I had no idea that's I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah, it was crazy because when I was diagnosed, the doctor's like, "Did your dad work in construction or mining?" And I was like, "Well, actually both." And he's like, "Well, yeah, you have the asbestos-related cancer." And it
Wow.
all kind of fell into place because I thought back to my childhood, and my dad would come home with this crusty, dusty jacket on,
Hmm.
and it was from sanding drywall. And
Yeah.
he would mix and sand the drywall, and it would all land on his coat. And he would come home and hang that coat on the doorknob in our entryway.
Yeah.
And I would put this coat on to go feed my rabbits or get the mail
Okay.
or, go outside and rake leaves. I would rather wear his coat because it was already dirty, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't get my nice school coat, dirty.
Yeah.
So that was probably the most likely source of my asbestos exposure. And
Wow.
it happens often. I know quite a few other secondhand exposures
Wow.
from people who have gotten diagnosed.
And you said that was 3 months after your birth of your
Yep.
child?
Yep. So
Wow.
Lucius was born in August of 2005, and I was diagnosed November 21st was the day where the whole life, came to a screeching halt and changed.
Did they
So
give you kind of like a timeline?
they told me upon diagnosis that I had 15 months to live.
Okay.
And my husband and I looked at each other, and I looked at the doctor and I said, no, I have a baby at home and I need to raise him. So what are you going to do about this? And he's like, well, if you do nothing, you will probably be dead in 15 months. You could do chemotherapy and radiation and hopefully get 5 years. I was like, okay, that's better. And then I was hoping within that 5 years, treatments or clinical trials would be better so I could maybe
Right.
get one of those. Then he says to me, but there's this surgery that they do that could get you as many as 10 years, if not more. But the only drawback is it's in Boston. I
Mm.
live in the Twin Cities in Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul. So going to Boston at that time, in my mind, it might as well have been, Europe or
Right.
Australia, because it was just like, oh my gosh, I just had a baby, just came off maternity leave
Yeah.
for work, and now I need to fly to Boston? And it's like, how do I manage that? What do I do with my baby? 100 questions. And my husband just looks at me and he looks at the doctor. He's like, get us to Boston. I don't care what it takes. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, the doctor took care of everything. He even called my insurance company
Wow.
and said, you have to cover this treatment as in network. And so I never had any trouble with my insurance or anything, which is unheard of.
Awesome.
And we were in Boston 12 days later, seeing the world's leading specialist in the disease.
Wow. Way to
Yeah.
take action quick.
Yeah, it was a whirlwind.
Yeah. May I ask, for anyone who might be wondering, what is it like to get a diagnosis like that? I mean, you just said you kind of push back on it right away. You're like,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
But you must have been experiencing fear in some way, and I know there's lots of people out there who are experiencing this right now because cancer is all over the place. You
Yep.
know what I mean? And we don't even talk about it that much because I think we feel like maybe if we don't talk about it, it won't happen to us. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like we
Yeah.
try to avoid until it does. And then someone unfortunately gets it, and whoever is their closest allies, they kind of circle around them and help them through.
Mm,
Meanwhile, we're just kind of hoping and not knowing what's going on.
yeah.
It's a weird thing, but it's a common path to walk to get a diagnosis,
Yeah.
and it's important to know that you're not alone,
Exactly.
and that it's a
Exactly.
process. And what you just demonstrated is that there's other avenues,
Yeah.
um, and that's amazing to have that sort of opportunity. You know what I mean? Opportunity to try something different. It may not be what works, but they're trying it. It could be something,
Yep.
and you went for it. And
Yeah.
how many years later are we at now?
20. Over
20.
20 years.
There we
Yep.
go.
Yep. I'm still I'm still kind of in shock that I'm still here. And, but I'm very, very happy and grateful. But
Yeah.
when you get a cancer diagnosis, it's not out of the blue
Right.
because you're going through diagnostic step for weeks up
Mm,
until you get handed that diagnosis.
right.
So I had been processing for, 2, 3 weeks after the biopsies and the CT scans and the PET scans and all that. Um, what if it's cancer? We didn't know what we were up against. We thought lung cancer or possibly breast cancer that had metastasized because I was a female, or,
Right.
could have been lymphoma. We just didn't know. So a mesothelioma diagnosis, I'd never heard the word
Right.
up until the doctor tells me this. And when he said it, my husband's like, oh, this is bad. And I'm kind of like, well, what do I do to get rid of it? I I didn't really have the fear until after I got home and started Googling. Ah,
Yeah.
don't ever Google.
No, no, no.
Um, so that's that's when I realized, oh, this is serious, and it's considered terminal, and it has a 98% rate of death. Like most people die within 18 months,
Hmm.
and getting to 5 years, less than 98%. Well, less 2% of the people make it to 5 years or more.
Yeah.
So, and those statistics have gotten better thanks to research and better treatments.
Yeah.
But, in 2005, 2006, that's what I was reading. And instead of going, oh my God, 98%, I was like, well, somebody has to be in the 2%.
There you go.
So I'm going to be that 2%. And so even though I was scared, I would just look at my baby and be like, I need to live to be
Yeah.
here for him and my husband. And I just felt a much greater purpose to it. Like,
Hmm.
I don't want to say there's a reason for my cancer, but I made a conscious choice to do something good
Hmm.
with it.
Yeah.
And talking about like spirituality and stuff like that, my mom is a very spiritual person, and so was my dad. And I had called them right away when I was going through the diagnostic stuff. And they live 600 miles away from me. And I told them what was going on. So they immediately jumped in their car and drove out here. And they were distraught, obviously. And my mom was praying. And she says this, she tells me this every week almost. It's so cute. She's like, well, remember when we were driving out there and I heard God tell me, this is not unto death. So, and she told me that, and I kind of held on to that as a life preserver.
Yeah.
That kept me from drowning in grief. I'm like, well, Mom heard God say this isn't unto death, so I'm going to believe in that, and I'm going to
Hmm.
take that and run with it. So,
Wow.
yeah.
It's amazing what our brains have to do in those moments. It's pretty
Yeah.
critical, but
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you ended up seeing the 2% and not the 98,
Yeah.
because that's where the hope is. That's where the freedom is. And
Yeah.
that's, if you put your focus there, that takes a lot of strength. I commend you for that.
Oh, thank you.
That's very important. It sounds like you had a great support system around you as well.
Really good. Yeah, my parents and my husband's family. My husband, he was my
Yeah.
rock.
And you had
You know,
things to live for. You know what I
yeah.
mean? You
Yeah.
had things that you wanted to go into. Now, I can't imagine what that would do to a person's personal mental health as you're going through that, because I don't know about you, but I don't like people worrying about me as
Yeah.
much, you know?
Yeah.
So I want to like take on and almost hide the pain, you know what I mean? And not worry them with it, but at the
Yep.
same time I end up burdening myself with being isolated with it.
Oh my gosh.
How
So
how,
true.
how did you experience that, or would you
Yeah, I understand. Cancer patients do this, and probably chronic. Anybody who goes through any type of trauma or anything goes through, I think that where we tend to downplay our symptoms or downplay our emotions and feelings
Yeah.
in order to not burden those around us.
Yeah.
And I see it happen all the time because we end up managing everybody else's emotions,
Mhm.
including our own. And obviously, we tend to put ours to the side. So I actually disassociated.
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of disassociated and just was like, okay, this is like kind of a movie, and I'm playing a part in this, and even though I was staying positive, there was still parts of me like, wow, this is really my life. And I remember I had an epic breakdown. The whole family was here. It was before we went to Boston, and I can't remember what had happened, but I remember looking at my baby. And I looked around the room, and my mom was there, my dad was there, my husband was there, and I'm holding my baby. And then it just hit me like a ton of bricks. What the severity of this, and that 98% death rate. And I handed my baby over to my husband, and I was just like, I can't deal with this. And I had a blanket on me, and I threw the blanket off, and I stood up. I can't deal with this. And I ran upstairs to my bedroom, threw myself on the bed, and cried and cried and cried and cried. And they were all just like, where did that come from? Because it was so out of the blue.
Mhm.
And then so I cried, and I was kind of like, oh, well, now I just have a headache, and it didn't solve anything.
Mhm.
Okay, so I got that out of my system. And so I came downstairs, was like, sorry, I'm okay now.
Yeah.
And they were just like, all right, that was kind of out of the blue. And I was just like, it just hit, a ton of bricks, but I'm gonna be fine now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was I look back at that and kind of laugh. Um, but that was
Th
really the only time I had a really, breakdown about the situation. So I just kind of got up, dusted myself off, and was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to putting my nose to the grindstone and figure this out, and I'm gonna live.
Yeah.
So,
Was
and
there any
getting
thought in your head like, if this is my last chapter, it's gonna be a great chapter?
Nope, I didn't
No?
even consider that. Dying was not an option.
Okay,
It
I
was
got
just
it.
like, yeah, it's like, nope, I'm not gonna die. I'm
Okay.
like, this is just, I have to go through these steps, and it is not my time right now. And I really felt deep down it was not my time.
Yeah.
I have too much to do. I've got to raise my child because he's going to do great things, and I want to make sure I'm here for it. And so, yeah, I made up my mind that it was not going to die. I'm going to be
Yeah.
here. So, getting to Boston was that actual, like, real hope I needed, that tangible
Yeah.
hope, which before that, it was like, okay, this might be the right thing. But meeting my surgeon and meeting the whole team that he had around him and all of the experts, I knew I was in the right place, and he was going to do everything he could to save my life.
Hmm.
And he gave me that hope I so desperately needed. And he told me in our one-on-one appointment, he's like, you know, I'm sure you read all the statistics. I was like, yeah, they're not good. He's like, I just want to tell you, when hope is in the equation, the odds don't matter because you're going to
Mm,
get through this. And he goes, I want you to raise your kid, and I'm going to do everything I can to get you through his adulthood.
yeah,
And I was like, fantastic. And we were a team ever since then.
that's awesome.
And he is the one responsible for my advocacy
Yeah.
job or my advocacy career passion. He had me talking to patients in the hospital while I was recovering from surgery.
Wow.
He would be like, hey, I want you to go over to room C22 and there's a gal over there. I want you to go talk to her. And so it was really funny. So yeah, I would go in. The social worker would have me talk to other like caregivers because they could ask me questions they couldn't ask their loved ones
Right.
for
That's a
fear
good point.
of like, I don't want to ask them this because I don't want to stress them out. But what are your thoughts on this? So I was able to talk to caregivers from a
Yeah.
patient's point of view, and that really helped a lot of them manage their
Yeah.
emotions and helping their loved ones.
Yeah.
So
That's
that
really,
was in the hospital. Why I was recovered? Because I was in the hospital for 18 days, not 5 weeks like you, but 18 days is a long time in the hospital. And so it filled my days there to be able to help other patients.
yeah.
So yeah.
Those can be long days in the
Yeah.
hospital.
Yep.
Long
Yep.
days in the hospital. But that's
Walked.
amazing that he had you move directly into a position of, as a resource. You became a resource really
Yeah.
quick,
Yeah.
and there's something about being able to help people while you're going through something that's challenging
Mhm.
that kind of makes it not easier, but you're more empowered, I think, a little bit
Yeah.
because you're
It
like, I want to do well here because I know that this other person might,
yeah.
learn from it or something like that. Like, this
And it
isn't just for me.
gets you out of your head,
Yeah.
when you're so in your head about stuff, but when you take the, concentration off of myself and put it on other people,
Hmm.
I could breathe a little bit and forget about what was going on with me.
Yeah.
And the more you normalize what we were going through with other patients, the more they felt seen and heard, and the better I got because we had the commonality,
Yeah.
the same emotions and physical, things that we were going through. So
Yeah.
it helped all of us.
Yeah, I bet. There's something about, yeah, being able to help people, which helps you, especially when we are forced to kind of articulate the way we're feeling or the way we felt or the patient that you're talking about may be feeling to that, whatever. It's really important. And when you do that, it actually, in your own mind, since you have to take what you're feeling and put words behind it and articulate it, it actually develops in our own mind as we put it into words.
Yep.
The best example I can give of that, kind of making fun of myself, is sometimes I'll be in therapy and I'll say something out loud that I have been feeling, and when I hear it out loud, I'm like, before the therapist says anything, I'm like, "Whoa, that seems a bit extreme." So she doesn't even have to correct me. It's like you get to talk to
Yeah.
somebody about how you're feeling, and then when you talk about it, you hear yourself, and you're like, "Oh, maybe that's a little too much," or something like that.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
helps to talk about it.
It
Um,
does. It does.
and it helps to, yeah, help other people along the way because it gives more purpose to what you're going through, or at least
Yeah.
it did for me.
Yeah.
It's like I can turn this into something positive, instead of just sitting here and being identified by this situation. I'm more than this situation. I have
Yeah.
been my whole life, and what can I do to kind of pour back into
Yep.
somebody else? So
Yep.
that's amazing. I guess that's one of your
Yeah.
major paddles, right? Was you were able to help other people.
Yeah, yeah. Then my dad called me, after my surgery. I'd been home for, or was it before everything? The timeline is kind of blurry because it was 20 years ago.
Right.
But my dad called me and he's like, I just want to tell you that you're going to be a lighthouse. You're going to be a
Mm.
beacon of hope for people who are in danger of crashing on the rocks. And I was like, whoa. And so I have a tattoo. I don't know if you can see it, but I have a
Lighthouse.
lighthouse
Yeah.
tattoo for my dad to remind me of my purpose.
That's
And
awesome.
his initials are in the bricks over here. So I remember what he told me. And remember my purpose, then I have a big picture of a lighthouse hanging in my dining room
Yeah.
and or my kitchen. And a friend of mine bought that for me, and she's like, "So you look at this every day to remind you of your purpose, that you are a lighthouse." So that I took that very much to heart, and
Yeah.
that's what I remember every day. I mean, I look at it every day, so I don't forget.
That's amazing what your dad said. It's amazing how powerful some words can be,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? If you
Both
see yeah.
both my parents were incredible.
It
So,
reminds you if you see someone and there's something positive to say, you should say it. You know what
yep,
I mean? Even if they're not if you're worried about how they might receive it, you can just say it,
yeah,
and it could stick with a person for a while, and then 6 months later they go, "Oh, I get it. I get what you
yeah,
were trying to say," you
yeah,
know? Um, but yeah, that's amazing, the power that words have and the importance of speaking them because people it
yeah,
matters, it
yep,
really does matter, especially when you need a little bit of hope in your life, a
yeah,
little bit of belief, a little bit of something extra, it's just that little nudge forward that really matters.
yeah.
Wow.
The thing about, talking about to people and normalizing thing is not to get into the toxic positivity as well.
Yeah.
And that's something I learned early on. And so I'm really cautious about the toxic positivity, like, oh, you got this and
Mhm.
everything's going to be fine. And because we don't feel, or you're so brave. And oh my gosh, but because we don't feel that
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get that old imposter syndrome, like, well, I don't feel very brave when I had to go through this or die,
Right.
and so I try to stay away from the toxic positivity stuff and just normalize the emotions that people have. And I think you do that too, where yes, you need hope, but you can't bury those emotions. As you found out,
Yeah.
when you bury them, they're going to come out one way or another.
Mhm.
And whether they demand to be heard. And so I often tell people that, if you need to cry, cry. If you
Mhm.
need to throw something in order to feel better, do it,
Mhm.
and make sure you feel the emotions because I think it's part of the journey. And if you're having trouble regulating that, then talk to your medical team.
Yeah.
There's, therapists, there's, group support groups, there's so many resources to
Mhm.
help manage the mental part of a cancer diagnosis that I don't think a lot of people take advantage of.
Why do
So,
you think that is? Why do you think they may avoid that? Is it kinda like a mental block? Like, if I go to
well,
this
just
meeting, I'm accepting or any
I
I
honestly think a lot of it has to do with because our medical system is so broken and they're so separate, and the stigma around mental health.
Mhm.
Because, oh, you've got this cancer diagnosis, so that's medical, but then you deal with depression, anxiety, PTSD, all that's I was diagnosed with PTSD after my my cancer and my
Yeah.
surgery. And so I try to normalize the mental health part of it. But I think a lot of people just don't seek help because they don't know. They
Mm.
think that, oh, well, this is just part of it when you don't need to suffer. You don't need to go through all that. You can have help. And
Mhm.
so I really urge people to see a therapist or get on, if they can have medication that would help take the edge off to do it because it helps so much.
Yeah.
'Cause it's impossible to do on your own, it's so much to try and think of. We don't have the tools innately in order to figure it out.
Right.
So I didn't really know until my therapist gave me the tools how to, manage the anxiety and those triggers
Yeah.
around stuff. So, and
Yeah.
that's what I do is I try to help people and give them the tools in order to recognize in themselves when they're having an issue and how to stop it and how to
Yeah.
regulate.
That's awesome. I think one of the things that scared me about medication, and I've been taking medication since the point I got shot. One of the things that scared me, if I can remember what I was about to say. Oh, is I didn't wanna be all wonked out. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't want it so my first psychiatrist said to me, "I can do one of 2 things. One is I can numb you out, or I can stabilize you so you can face the PTSD and fix it. One is
Yeah.
avoidance, one is faith in it. Which one are we gonna do?" And I was like, "Let's
Yeah.
face it." And I don't know
Yeah.
why I
Right.
said that because I'm, I'm an alcoholic after all, and usually you'd probably want but I wasn't like I wasn't drinking a handle a day at that point. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
really was trying to get better
Yeah.
and wanted to make the right decisions. And so yeah, a lot of guys I talk to, they're like, I don't want to take medicine. It's going to make me act weird. It's going to make me feel funny. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
medicine for me stabilizes me so I can
Yeah.
work on the stuff so that once I work on that stuff, I start feeling better instead of
Yeah.
the forever dependence on the medicine to keep me
Yep.
at a certain level, right?
Yep.
Um, and then there's also a lot of other things you can do, like working out or moving your
Yep.
body really helps a lot,
Exercise. Yep.
Um,
Walking. Just walking
yes.
is
Yeah.
one of the best, mental health things anybody can do is just go for a walk. And it's so simple.
Yeah.
Get outdoors. Yeah.
Yeah. And it matters. And if you've ever been on a walk where you're talking too,
Yeah.
sometimes that conversation will just flow because you're not
Yeah.
thinking as much. You're just kind of in stride, you're moving your
Yep.
body, you've got some sunlight. Yeah, and you just kind of flow into a conversation, and by the end of it, you're like, "Whoa, how did we even get here?"
Well, that was a fast hour. Huck, what the
Yeah,
heck?
it really
So,
it
yeah,
goes like that. So
it
that's
does.
important. But what other tools do you think that are important for someone who's facing a diagnosis, who feels overwhelmed? You were talking about, your therapist gave you resources. What kind of resources could we give them today, you think?
I that's one thing that I do a lot. Knowledge is power.
Okay.
And I I work with a website called Mesothelioma.com, which is one of the websites online that has a ton of information
Okay.
about mesothelioma. But you can also be like too informed. Support groups.
Yeah.
I volunteer with a nonprofit called the Mesothelioma Applied Research Foundation, and
Awesome.
they have great support groups that are led by social workers and um, social workers, and they're so helpful to get together with. They're on Zoom because we're
Mm,
all over the country. And so just empowering yourself to join stuff like that. And the people who join the support groups for the first time are always like, this is my first one. I don't know what to think. And we're like, hey, welcome.
yeah.
We're here to normalize this and making people feel like they're part of something and not so isolated.
Yes.
Because it is such an isolating cancer. It's rare. Less than 3,000 people are diagnosed with this a year in the US.
Wow.
So that's rare.
Yeah.
And finding the support is difficult. So finding a support group, um, find the joy in every day, find something to look forward to,
Yeah.
live in the moment,
Yeah.
but don't deny the future. I plan trips a couple months out, so I always have something to look forward to.
Yeah.
So I have a trip coming up in May, I have a trip coming up in June, possibly a trip to Australia in October.
Very
So,
cool.
yeah, so it's like constantly looking forward to something,
Yes.
I think is really important, but not, betting your life like, well, I want to go to Australia, but what if I'm not feeling enough? That's why you buy insurance for your trip and then call it good. So just plan it and do the best to follow through with it is kind of what I tell people too.
You're right.
And
Having
do
things on the horizon kind of take
yeah,
the monotony out of, like, you know what I mean? If you go a whole year with your head down just working on yourself and
yeah,
like just try it's draining. You do
yeah,
need to separate yourself at some point and like experience the world and kind of
yep,
be in the present and all
yep,
that kind of stuff. I totally agree with you.
yeah,
Putting something on the calendar is powerful. My wife
yeah.
actually is the one who does that for
Oh,
us.
good. That's
So
great.
she'll kind of walk in and be like, "Guess what we're doing in 2 months?" I'm like, "I don't know. What are we doing?"
Where are we going?
Yeah,
So,
exactly, and
yeah. And
it's
I think
always
that's so important to have something to look forward to, whether because it's just like your life is ruled by medical appointments, especially if you're in treatment.
yeah,
And there's the medical fatigue, which I'm sure you're familiar with. You have so many appointments, you just cannot fathom one more health related appointment. Like, I hate going to the dentist
yeah,
because that's just another thing for maintenance. But chemo kills your teeth, so you have to go to the dentist because you got to keep your teeth healthy.
oh,
And
man,
so it's just like, oh, the medical fatigue. So normalizing that with people, because a
mhm,
lot of people don't even know that's a thing.
Right.
and normalizing the medical fatigue. Like, it's okay to tap out and not want to go. And I think that's also a reason why people don't seek out therapy,
Yeah.
is because it's just one more appointment to manage.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like, and then just try to find the joy. If you see something silly and it makes you happy, buy it, or
Yeah.
I love doing stuff for people. I like surprising people with little gifts, and, so that's what I like to do, is buy friends little gifts and send it to them. I have a friend who's obsessed with banana pudding. And we had some in Florida and it was so good, but we can't get any here that's really good. So I went on to goldbelly.com and I sent her banana pudding from this restaurant in New York. And she got it. She was like, "Oh my God, this is awesome." So just silly things like that I love doing.
Yeah.
And that, I encourage people to do stuff like that to bring themselves joy.
Someone told me at one point, if I walk out my door and I'm looking for bad things, I'm going to find them. But if I'm looking for good and opportunities to help, they're
Yep.
there too.
Yep.
It's just I'm so clued in on the negative. If
Yeah.
my head's in a bad space, I'm looking at the world like it's a negative place. But if I just make it comes down to sometimes a conscious decision.
It
Like
is a choice.
I will see the good today,
Yep.
And unfortunately, that kind of comes with experience because you get so many bad days under your belt. You're like, what can I do here? Like
Yeah.
it almost drives you crazy, and it's
It's like,
like,
enough already.
right,
What
and you
else
don't,
can happen? I stopped saying that. No, what else bad can happen? I
right,
stopped thinking that. It's like, no, what else good can happen?
yeah,
And it's been work. I've been working on myself for many, many years about this stuff and
yeah,
changing mindset and thinking
yeah.
that way. So, yeah,
It comes with work. Yeah, it's not
it
a
is work.
natural reaction to just
No.
it it takes work. It takes courage. It takes
Yeah.
courage to kind of look back at it and be like, okay, well, I see the 2%. Let's get to
Yep.
work.
Yep.
And that takes yeah, I think courage is the best way to do it.
Yeah.
And it's scary when you get put in a situation, you feel like you're not part of the herd. Why is it me? Why am I the one getting this? Everyone
Yeah.
else seems to be doing fine. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do this and blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like all these kinds of things. And you're stuck in this place of, well, for me, for a long time after I was injured and I wasn't making the right choices, I actually thought I was like a victim. And I
Yeah.
stayed in like a victim mentality for
Oh,
a
yeah.
long time.
Easy to do.
And I had been led to the water. I just wasn't ready to drink. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Because I didn't think it was my responsibility, but it turns out that we are our own responsibility, regardless of how we
Hmm.
got into a situation or not. And sometimes it's hard to take on that because you feel like it wasn't your fault. This wasn't my choice, all these kinds of things. But once you're able to go, you know what? This is my responsibility because it
Yep.
is my life. What positive things can I do here? That's when things can start to shift.
Yeah.
And you can almost feel like you're participating in the event compared to just going through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what's cool about that, when you do start thinking that way, it affects everything around you.
Yep.
It affects your husband, your wife, your children. Um, so I've been doing a lot of, inner work for probably the last like 6, 7 years.
Hmm.
And a lot of it's just come to fruition over the last year or so. And my kid has seen this, and he's 20 now. So, and it's been really neat to see him emulating the lessons that I've learned and have passed on to him, and seeing him utilize these tools in action.
Yeah.
And, it's one thing to help a patient, but I don't see them every day.
Hmm.
I keep in touch with a lot of them, but I don't see the patients every day. But I see my child every day
Hmm.
and see the change in him and how he's switched his mindset from being really upset and depressed about stuff to being hopeful and positive. And I mean, he's a therapist too, which I think everybody should.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that really helped him put things into perspective, and me modeling that as well, I think helped him a lot
Yeah.
too. So it's neat to see. And
For sure.
my husband's like happier, or maybe I'm just happier. So
No,
makes everybody around you happier.
I totally get it. It's so funny what our heads can do to us because for a long time I thought I was like a nuisance. I'm the problem.
Oh,
What's wrong with me? You know what I mean? Thinking that their life would be better if
yeah,
kind of like I didn't exist, I'm the
yeah,
problem kind of deal. But the truth is like these people love you.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And when you look so sad, it does affect them. Not that I'm trying to
yeah,
put any responsibility on anyone's shoulders right now. Like it's not your job if you're going through something. But at the
right.
same time, if you choose to step up and face the thing and have that courage, it empowers everyone around you.
Hmm.
Because
It
they're like, oh,
does.
she's going for it. Let's get her
Yep,
back. Come on,
yep,
how are we going to jump in on this? And
yep.
it really gets the ball rolling for everyone
And
around you.
yeah, and the caregivers are such an important part of our journey.
Yeah.
They're so important. And, my husband, I always say he was my rock. He
Hmm.
was, and he had his times too when we lost a friend early on who we got to know, like at my first appointment. And unfortunately, he didn't make it off the operating room table. And I called Cameron to let him know that he had passed. And it's like, that's when it really hit him. And he just sat on the kitchen floor and cried and cried and cried. And unfortunately, I was still in Boston. He had to come back
Hmm.
home and go to work. And my
Hmm.
sister had taken over taking care of me. So he was all alone and the reality hit him. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm alone in this house. This could be my future because our baby was with my parents.
Right.
So, he was like, this isn't the future I want. And so he had a lot to deal with too.
Yeah.
So, and we talk about it a lot, still to this day about his personal journey as a caregiver.
Yeah.
And it really made him grow up and
Yeah.
change and become a better person too.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
he's my biggest fan. He's my biggest supporter.
Isn't that the
So,
best
yeah,
when you found that person
yeah,
who's willing to go the distance with you?
yeah.
My wife's kind of the same boat. I was telling you earlier, I had to call her when I was drinking again after I got out of the hospital, and she's at work, right? So I call her up. I'm like, so I'm crying. I'm like, honey, you don't deserve this. I'm drinking. It's out of control. I'm hiding alcohol. I'm so sorry. I understand if this is enough for you, blah, 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 blah. And the first thing she said was, okay, what do we do now?
Huh.
And
Wow.
just those words and like the idea that there's actions to take and we're going to keep going and move through this, it lit a fire under me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that kind of love that someone wouldn't just, abandon me
Yeah.
because, I'm kind of a problem, and 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 she stuck it out and taught me to walk and like all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. Like I'll spend the rest of my life trying to repay her. I'll fall
Yeah.
short, but it it it's just amazing what true love will do
Yeah.
when someone stands next to you through it. And
What really proved it to me and continues to prove it to me on the 1 year anniversary of my surgery, my husband comes home with 2 plates and 2 Sharpie markers. I'm like, "What's this?" He's like, "You don't remember?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "It's Long Leavin' Day." So we called the day of my surgery Long Leavin' Day, the day my
okay,
lung left.
okay,
And we're Swedish, so we say it with a Swedish accent, Long Leavin' Day. And my sister and my husband had talked when I was getting a biopsy done. My sister was out in Boston as well helping. And they had had a discussion on how to commemorate the loss of my lung. And my sister said, well, today your lung leaves, so we got to call lung leaving day. So she coined the term. And then they talked about how to commemorate it. Well, my sister did yoga stuff and she did fire walking. So she's like, oh, you could do fire walking. And in fire walking, you write your fears on a piece of wood, you throw it into the fire walking pit, and then you walk over it to like walk over your fears and
yeah,
trample your fears.
yeah.
And my husband laughed. He's like, yeah, no, that's not going to work in Minnesota in the winter because my surgery was February 2nd. So he's like, yeah, no, because we could do like the Greeks do and, smash a plate into a bonfire or like a fireplace. And then they're like, oh, we could write our fears on a plate and smash a plate in a bonfire for lung leaving day. And that became the tradition.
That's
So
amazing.
on the first anniversary, my husband comes home with a plate for each of us and a Sharpie. And it was like 17 below that day. It was so cold. And he goes out and he lights a fire in our fire pit in our backyard. It's this pathetic little tiny fire because it was so cold he couldn't get it going real well. But
Right.
it didn't matter. We sat down and we started writing our fears on these plates. And it was like once the dam broke, those fears just flooded this plate. I didn't realize how much I had been holding inside. And
Mm-hmm.
this is why I'm so adamant about people feel what they feel and let it out. And I'm crying as I'm writing my fears, everything from like not being able to raise my kid, financial ruin, losing our house, divorce, if it were all to happen. All these fears just come pouring out, and Cam's were the same. And we both looked at each other, and we were tears rolling down our face. And he's like, "You ready?" It's like, okay. So we bundle all up and we go outside and we smash our plates in the bonfire. And we're like, oh, this was amazing. We got to share this. And so the next year we invited people over to share in Long Leaving Day. So we celebrated on the first Saturday in February. Sometimes it's the second, sometimes it's later, sometimes it's earlier, but it's always that first Saturday in February. And it
Okay.
became a tradition. And I think in my 9th and 10th year in my little house, we had over 120 people here gathering around the bonfire, smashing plates. And I, thank God for the dollar store. Go there and buy tons of plates. And it became like this big celebration for people. And then I started raising money for the Miso Foundation so because I wanted to have a purpose and give back to the community. So we started using it as a fundraiser. And to date, I think we've raised over $35,000 for
Wow.
just our little party. So yeah, it's been really, really meaningful. And unfortunately with COVID, we had to take a few years off, but we brought it back this year because it was the 20th anniversary. And we did it smaller, but it was still just as meaningful. And it's changed people's life. And there's people who have been here since the beginning, friends of mine that still show up and celebrate with us. And we've had other mesothelioma patients attend, and I dedicate the party to another meso patient who had lost their battle in the last year. And so there's always, a bit of a somber bit about it, but it's meant to be done in a spirit of celebration.
Mm-hmm.
And people have told me, one friend said, you know what, I have an eating disorder. And because of this Lung Leaving Day and your example, I've been able to overcome this eating disorder and get help for it.
That's awesome.
That was meaningful. Another friend is like, I finally got the courage to leave my abusive husband, which I didn't know that was going on. And she shared that with me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know. She's like, this party was able to give me that courage to finally leave him. That's a huge, huge responsibility, or like, I didn't even know the simple act of breaking a plate and smashing your fears could do that for people.
Yeah.
But, I have t-shirts that I'm sending to a friend of mine in Australia. And so I had t-shirts made. So it was like this was 2011. I don't know. Can you see it?
Yeah, that's awesome. Lung
So
Leaving Day.
this was the 11th one in 2017 rather. And Smashing Fears for however many years. So it was like Smashing Fears for 20 years. And
That's awesome.
so yeah, it's like planning a wedding every year because it ends up being such a big to-do. But this year we made it easy, and it's like, oh, I'm going to do that from now on. It's way easier to just have people over and break plates.
What a
But
cool thing.
it's meaning. And
That's
growing up, when Lucius was growing up, teachers would ask, "What's your favorite holiday?" And he would always say, "Lung Leaving Day."
like, what is
And
that?
so the teacher's like, huh? Well, then his teachers started coming. So we had, teachers from the school, which is just around the block from us, show up for Lung Leaving Day to celebrate with us.
That's amazing.
And yeah, it's such a neat occasion. You can look it up online. You can see pictures. And
I'm going to. This sounds amazing.
read the story. Yeah.
Talk
And people
about
from all over the country, like, because I broadcast it on Facebook or Instagram.
Yeah.
So I had friends from Australia joining in, and it was pretty incredible.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow.
So let's celebrate the good. We took a tragedy and turned it into something much better and brighter.
Yeah.
And that, I think, was the whole purpose of my diagnosis.
Yeah.
Tragedy to triumph. That's kind of So maybe that's my other paddle. So
Yeah.
is lung leaving day.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
So that's when I knew my husband was totally in it for me when he came home that first year with the plates and Sharpies. And let me tell you, every year he is all out there. He gets the backyard so beautiful because it's winter in Minnesota. So, and he surrounds it with blue lights, and it's the most beautiful, magical backyard. And it's that he does all that because it's a labor of love for him. He's like, nope, we're going to celebrate this every year.
I'm in
And I
awe.
love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is amazing. What a cool way to take the power back in a way. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like
exactly.
to take it back. I actually recently was interviewing someone and his wife had cancer, and I think she had a feeding tube, and then she had something else. And what they did is instead of like saying it's a feeding tube and whatever, they gave it names like power and
Mm.
purpose, like
Oh,
just,
wow.
and it was almost like they took back, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like the situation by claiming and it sounds a lot like what you guys did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I can also relate to, it's funny what you're able to write down when you get on a roll
Yeah.
and the brain starts firing and then like it's pouring out of you. You're almost in like a flow state. And then you see what you've done. And you're like, I didn't even know I felt this way
Yeah.
about this, and how freeing that is for the person who's
Yeah.
writing it. That's why they talk about journaling a lot. I
Yep.
was doing it for a while. I should be better at it because I know that it does work,
Yeah.
just kind of if you're having like a rant in your head, instead of having the rant in your head, write it down because
Yeah.
it forces you to articulate it. It forces you to put it
Yep.
down there. And by doing it, it actually helps get those feelings out,
Yep. Exactly.
and instead of
Exactly.
simmering on it. The best advice I've had about feeling feelings was not from my police department or anyone else saying, suck it up, get through it or anything like that. It was a person who came on this show who had 10 plus strokes, and
Oh,
you don't count anymore after 10. It's just 10 plus strokes, and
wow.
he's wheelchair bound, and he's going through a lot of pain mentally, physically, spiritually. I'm like, how do you process feelings? And he said, I let them flow all over me. I let them wash
Wow.
all over me. And if it's sadness, I'm going to feel the sadness to the core of it,
Yeah.
however long that takes. And then you know what happens after that? I feel better
Yeah.
because I've handled it. I've looked at it
Yep.
instead of avoiding it. I've, put it in front of me and said, I see you.
Yep.
And then I thought that was really interesting. So I try to do the same thing now
Yeah.
because toughing it through isn't, I think especially with like men, we think that if we're strong physically, we should be able to power through something like trauma. It's not even the same ball field. It's not even
No.
the same game,
No.
but we've been told in a way that it is sort of just man up and do your thing, and like it doesn't work because it just makes you feel like you're
No.
less of a man if you can't handle it, and
Oh,
like
so toxic.
and you're not going to go ask for help because now you feel like less of a man. So
Yeah.
for anyone like me out there, I mean, it's important to feel those feelings.
Feel
Do,
it. Feel it
do it
and let it.
alone. You don't have to tell
Yeah.
anybody. Just do it alone.
Yeah.
And just keep going. It's a
Yep.
pretty amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Heather, it's been an absolute pleasure. Unless you have something else that's on the tip of your tongue to tell
No,
somebody.
we've just had a great conversation, and I think I've shared,
Mm.
enough about my journey, and I'm easy to find online. So you just Google me, and I can be
Yes.
found on Facebook, Instagram,
And what we'll do is we're going to put all your information
Okay,
in the bio and the
great.
description of the episode. So anything or anywhere that you want these people to go, I'll get it from you and make sure that it's on there when we release the
Okay,
episode. And
fantastic.
yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on Shit Creek Survivors. And
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute honor to be here, and thank you for sharing my story. I really appreciate it, and hopefully somebody
of
will be
course,
inspired by it, and
if it helps one
and
person, it's
that
enough.
it's all worth it. So,
Absolutely. If Heather's story gave you hope today, do us a favor and help us get the message out in front of more people. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below sharing what part of Heather's story resonated with you the most. You never know who might read your comment and find the encouragement they need. And if you know somebody facing cancer or a difficult diagnosis or a challenge that feels impossible right now, share this episode with them. Thank you for spending your time with us today. Remember, no matter how deep the creek gets, there are paddles out there, and sometimes hope is the first one you grab. Until next time, keep paddling.